opinions, statements, or beliefs expressed on the following program by the host, guests, or callers are not necessarily the opinions of FantasyAccess.com, Media Group Inc. ownership, management, sponsors, or website. Heat fans, time for the best insight of your favorite team with insider Ira Winderman, exclusively on the Big O Radio Show. It's the Acura of Pembroke Pines, Miami Heat and NBA report. Here's Ira Winderman.
There he is, locked and loaded and ready to go. How you feeling, my man? Are you feeling as sweet as a Cole Swider three-pointer?
Well, I don't know if he's going to replicate what he did in the scrimmage throughout the preseason, but you know what? The Heat developmental program, I mean, it's interesting. The Dolphins develop a running back practically out of nowhere, and it's a revelation. And yet with the Miami Heat, you almost expect them out of every camp to find a couple of guys who you go, who is this guy? Tell me more. We've spoken for years about those guys. Sometimes they make it. Sometimes they're Marcus Garrett and they don't. But they constantly churn through the possibilities. So this camp, whether you're going to see it, whether it be a Cole Swider, a Drew Peterson, one of the guys we saw in Summer League, we've seen it already to a degree with Orlando Robinson. That's what they do. And what I like, Big O, is as much as I enjoyed the conjecture this summer on our Acura Pembroke Pines reports, it's kind of nice to know this is who you are and now you can move forward. Because at some point you have to draw that line. You have to say, hey, this is our team. The Lillard stuff was fun. The Harden stuff was scary. There are other possibilities. But eventually you have to say, let's see what we have here. We could always make a move afterwards.
Yeah. And listen, I know it's going to be a fun season. I know it's going to be a good season. I know I'm expecting them to surprise me and do better than what I expect from that lineup. So, I mean, again, I'm just going to be wowed by Spo. By the way, let me ask you something. Speaking of Spo, who has another year here, and kind of spin it to another sport. Can we really say that Belichick is the GOAT? Is it just lazy to go with the titles? Because, for me, I grew up watching the greasy teams, and then I watched Woodstock, and then I watched Marino, and I saw, while he didn't win titles with all of them, but I watched him win titles with watched him get to the Super Bowl with all three different types of teams. I watched Eric Spoelstra. I don't know how many different kinds of teams he's had and had success with, and I think the great coaches, whether it's Joe Gibbs winning 3 Super Bowls with 3 quarterbacks that aren't even Hall of Famers, or Andy Reid, or watching Phil Jackson with 2 different types of teams. To me, I think if you're going to be the GOAT, right, you got to show me more than just one style of coaching, that you got Tom Brady and you won it all. And I love using Eric Spoelstra as an example, the guy you cover, because he proves to us that he can coach any kind of team. No disrespect, and I know it's going to sound kind of disrespectful, but Riley kind of was set in his big center ways and work around that, and he kind of wanted those kind of lineups on a consistent basis. Did he adjust with Mason once? Yeah, I remember that when he had to adjust, and he did a marvelous job with that. But I've never seen anybody with the versatility that Spo has done. And so is it lazy to just say Belichick is the GOAT because of the 7 titles when we see coaches in different sports? Larry Brown, dude, wherever the hell he went, you were going to the playoffs. I don't care if it was the Clippers. You ended up in the playoffs. That's greatness to me. So is the Belichick thing a little lazy on our part just because of the straight up titles when you see he's nothing without Brady?
I think it was lazy, and I think Pat Riley has something to do with that, with his championship or misery mantra early on. But then you're seeing that great coaching can come in different forms. It could be taking a bad team and finding a way to get to the playoffs and contend. For example, Big O, you mentioned Pat's success with the Lakers, with the Knicks, and with the Heat. But even what about Pat Riley's first season with the Heat, when he had a terrible roster and he rebuilt in progress with Zoe and Tim Hardaway, got to the playoffs with Sasha Danilovic, made that team a playoff team and started the road. Sometimes that's as hard. Eric Spoelstra, the first year they get Beasley, they go to the playoffs against Atlanta, they get to an all or nothing game there. That's the different level. When Pat Riley was telling us is championship or bust, for example, I'll give you an example. You know, it was a great coaching job this year, managing job because of his sport, but didn't win a title. What Skip Schumacher did with the Marlins, he made them relevant again. That is great coaching. I'll give you another guy like Paul Maurice. And think about how many different styles and teams he did to make his teams playoff relevant. So I agree with that. I think we were all sort of caught up in the Pat Riley championship or misery, of which Pat has even changed. What I'm impressed with, if Bill Belichick with Mac Jones and the roster he has can get his team to the playoffs, that might be his greatest coaching job ever. If Robert Pallet can keep the Jets afloat after losing Aaron Rodgers and still make his team relevant like their nice win in Denver this weekend, that's a hell of a coaching job. Coaching
like
come in different forms.
He almost made the Mike Tomlin a couple of years ago with a quarterback, the Duckster, he almost made the playoffs with that guy. I mean, you know, he won like 9 games, almost snuck in there, and that's, you know, proving it. That's why I'm saying this Belichick thing, brother. I mean, Brady goes to Tampa and wins the Super Bowl. What have you done without Brady, dude? You know, so it's kind of like you got to show me something else. Like Spo got a bunch of scrubs and went almost into the playoffs by going 31-10 in the second half.
And I'll give you another example. Bill Belichick with the Cleveland Browns was terrible. He was awful. He was like, this guy can't coach.
Right.
But I can't recall an Eric Spoelstra season like that, in other words, where they've blown up. So I do think that is a viable point that I think sometimes it's like, if you can move point A to point B, whether it's contender to champion, whether that's lottery to playoffs, that matters also. Skip Schumacher made things fun here. Paul Maurice made things fun here. Mike McDaniel is making things fun here. That matters also. We've enjoyed regular seasons down here. We've enjoyed a playoff opportunity down here. Sure, everyone wants to take that next step. But I can almost make a case, and I don't mean to diminish, what the Marlins did this year with what they had and their history almost does compare to me to what the Heat and the Panthers did last year with their star-laden rosters also. So I think you have to appreciate the entire spectrum between victory and championship. There's some good stuff in between also.
I just think that, you know, when I look at what Belichick's doing, and then I look at the guy you cover every day, there's no comparison to me, dude. Eric Spoelstra is just, I think Eric Spoelstra proves every year how freaking phenomenal he is. And by the way, Larinaga does the same shit too.
Yes.
Because in college, you're forced every 3-4 years.
With the transfer portal and seventh-year seniors, it's a different world. My example would be this. If Sean Payton can make these Denver Broncos relevant, they are terrible, then I would say, hey, based on what this guy did in New Orleans and then coming to this crap show, because it's not like Bill Belichick, when Brady left, said, I'm going to go to some lesser team and try to start from the beginning and show I could do it multiple places. Obviously, he was comfortable. He had everything he wanted from Bob Kraft, but that's the difference. I think there's a lot of coaching jobs that go unappreciated below the championship spectrum. I do agree with that.
All right, so let's get to it. By the way, has Kai Jones requested his trade to Miami? Have Heat fans told you already, Ira, we want Kai Jones? Because Heat fans want everyone available. So is Kai Jones ready to pay his fine and then get traded to the Heat?
You know what? And it's interesting because I know usually at the end of our Acura Pembroke Pines report, you ask me what I'm working on. I posted a story right now on RJ Hampton, who the Heat have as a tryout. The one thing at Big O about the Heat's developmental program, they don't bring in everyone. They identify 3 or 4 during an offseason. So for what Kai Jones might or might not be with his claims of greatness, the Heat also are smart enough to say, you know what? This camp's about RJ Hampton. This camp is about Cole Swider. This camp is about Drew Peterson. And they focus on those guys. They don't lie to them. They don't tell them great promises of contracts and long-term deals, but they do say this. If you work for us, with us, starting in August, we will give you every opportunity to thrive. So I think the Heat have their developmental guys already lined up right now, no matter what other guys try to get their foot in the door.
All right, so but the Kai story, can you walk us through the whole, he's about to get fined by the NBA because of all of this stuff? Because it's kind of a funny story.
Well, I'm only, maybe you're more caught up than I am. I'm caught up to the point of his claims of greatness and what he's done. So why don't you take us the rest of the way, Big O?
No, because apparently you could, I think it's up to $150,000 you're fined if you if you make a public trade request. Like apparently you can't do that. So that's why I asked you about
Oh, no,
that.
no. That part I know, but that
Yeah,
part also shows the savvy of the players and the agent if the agent's involved. You know, when you look at it, Damian Lillard said he would like to go somewhere else. He never demanded, though. He played the fine line of that whole game. James Harden's different. He did say he's never playing for Daryl Morey again. He got his $100,000 fine. There's a lot of nuance. And what's interesting is this. Usually, if you're a big enough player, you have your, I don't mean to demean this, your guy. So Shams can report it for you, or Woj, or Chris Haynes or someone. So it's not you saying it. It's reportedly is looking for a trade, even though he called you up or texted you to let you know. It's such a game, I think, in my sport more than any other sport. The mouthpieces of players. It's almost like we could run down a list, and I'll tell you a guy, and I'll say Damian Lillard, and you go, oh, that's a Chris Haynes guy. And then I'll tell you Ben Simmons, and you'll go, oh, that's a Woj guy, and this guy's a Shams guy. The manipulation I see, and we know it. You know it, Woj. I know it. Anthony Chang knows it. You know where it's coming from. But the gamesmanship in this league with their insiders, I mean, the NFL, I know, has Ian Rappaport. It has Adam Schefter. It has his guys also. But in certain sports, there are just certain guys who work to get the work done without the fine. It's like almost if I request a trade, I get a $100,000 fine. So I'll just slip Shams a few bucks or a few tips or something, and he'll take care of me. The Lillard thing was just rife with that, as was the Joe Cronin thing. Him getting his message out. So the manipulation, you know, on the networks, they can't call it out. On shows like this and our Acura Pembroke Pines report, we can. That's the difference. Kai Jones just needed a better quote-unquote handler. When you have a handler to take care of that stuff, you go below the radar, you still can get what you want.
Are the Heat getting a motivated Tyler Johnson? I mean, he should be Tyler Hero. He should be motivated. Tyler should be motivated. But for me, my only issue really with Tyler is actually durability. That to me is actually the secret sauce to him finally unlocking who he is. It's, kid, just stay on the court. And if you stay on the court, then the Heat can finally see what you can do an entire season instead of us. We keep, you know, thinking back on the bubble and the bubble and the bubble. And that's kind of our last postseason like memory of
which was only 3 years ago to the day, which is crazy because of the delayed season, how recent it was. Look, there's a couple of things with Tyler. He is totally on an FU tour, and I expect him to wear the FU tour t-shirt at some point, and he should be. And you even see days like today when ESPN is ranking its top 100, and they did the 50 to 100, and they got guys like Jordan Poole ahead of Tyler. He takes that all as motivation. I am concerned Tyler works his butt off in the offseason. I almost wonder if he works too much and he wears himself down ahead of the grind of the 82-game season. But I think when you have that kind of frailer or sinewy build like he has, you leave yourself a little bit more susceptible. That sort of, stick figure kind of player we see. So that's an issue. So Big O, I agree with the durability, but I actually posted in my Ask Ira today, part 2. Can he play a lick of defense? Because to be the closer, you have to close on both ends with the NBA rules limiting timeouts. And he is just fresh meat on that end. So I love that he's making shots. I love that he has his FU tour. I love that he wants to start. I love that he wants to be an all-star. I have no issue with that. You should want to be everything. I want Tyler Hero to say the words before the end of camp of this. I want to be a defender who can be counted on. Haven't heard that yet. To me, as much as health, that's the next step. Because even if you're healthy and you can't play a lick of defense, you can't be out there to make the big shot when you can't make the big stop.
No, I know. I just don't know if I have a lot of hope for him to ever become a great defender, because that's a nasty trait you must have. It must be something that comes from within you that you take pride in. And that's not something that he's ever taken pride in.
Or physical abilities. Just like guys can't dunk.
Yeah, but but you have to want it. When you play defense, you have to want it. And that's something that has to come natural from the player. And if you don't see it from the get-go, it's rare to find the guy that really turns into some kind of a real tenacious defender or something like that. Maybe they can, occasionally do it. But as for the frailness, I started laughing at that because here's my problem with all of that. When Tayshaun Prince was coming out of school, I'm going, holy crap. Yeah, he's got some skills, but there's no way that guy stays healthy in this league. And somehow or another, thin ass, rail ass, super freaking tough Tayshaun Prince proved to be an incredibly durable stick man. You know what I mean? He didn't start breaking down till later on in his career, and I was amazed by that with Tayshaun Prince.
But he also had incredible length. He had plus length with those arms, those Phil Jackson-like arms. The problem with Tyler Hero is this. He has short arms. And that's the first question I asked him when he joined the Heat in 2019. What about your short arms? Because I'm an idiot and I ruined his press conference. But you know what? When you don't have the length, you have to work so much harder in the passing lanes. You have to work so much harder to get up and into your man and risk him with the blow-by. So it is a thing. You know what? There's a reason Tyler Hero, with his great scoring skills, fell to the end of the lottery. So Big O, I think we need to recast it this way, and you can tell me if it's a good thing or a bad thing. If Tyler Hero's ultimate upside is if Jordan Crawford or Lou Williams, can that still foretell a successful career for him?
Yeah, for sure. A score off the bench. I have no problem with that. I think that'll be fine. I just want to stay healthy, Ira. That's really
and
what
we won't know to the playoffs. And we won't go to the playoffs because it was the playoffs 2 years ago when they went to the conference finals against Boston and he wasn't there. He wasn't there. He dove hard. He made maybe a foolish play. At least that wasn't a hamstring or a quad or something where you could say, hey, it's soft tissue again. This guy's body is breaking down. I think we have to give him a one-off, Big O, last year. He dove on the floor and broke his hand. That could happen to any player at any time. Yes, diving on the floor at the end of a first half of a first playoff game is probably not the smartest move, and maybe you learn from that. But it's the guys who get the constant hamstrings and quads and Achilles and things like that that are more muscular. That's where I'm more concerned. Tendon stuff like that. So hopefully, and again, we will not know till the playoffs with him.
By the way, in my mind, I'm still thinking of Larry Bird diving for one that his head bounced off the. You remember that? And it was like, my man, you got that bad back. Why are you doing that? It's the same thing. You competitors, you can't.
And then you remember his back with the dream team. He could barely play in Barcelona because of it. But you know what? There's something to be said, A, for effort. And I'll say this. Tyler Hero is pushing himself to a level that a lot of people would be surprised after all those trade rumors. His FU tour, I think, is going to be epic this year. I just hope, Big O, it comes in the team's concepts and precepts because I can't see him being out there for his own the way he was felt that he was treated by the team. So I'm curious to see how that plays out.
The tendonitis for Caleb Martin, nothing serious, right? In the knee, just.
When I hear tendonitis, you do get worried. It's ongoing. It's a condition. He pushes himself, as hard as he can. He's sort of an athletic guy who realizes he has to count on that. I hope not, because I could see him being this team's starting power forward. I could see him be this team's starting shooting guard. He's a absolute core piece in the top 8 of this team. And I'll tell you, Big O, if he misses extended time, I don't have a replacement for him because I hate to say it, but Josh Richardson's sort of looking 30 years old. People do not expect 2015 Josh Richardson. You are 8 years removed from when the Heat drafted him at number 40 out of Tennessee in the second round. Don't have those expectations. I think that might disappoint you a little.
All right. What else you got going on, the Sun Sentinel?
Well, again, I have that R.J. Hampton feature that I'm working on to show that, hey, he could be the next guy. The Heat do not have a great lineage of athletes. They have not brought in a lot of guys who don't have a specific position they try to develop. One of them early on was Harold Miner. That didn't work. Another guy after that, you remember Mark Strickland, Pogo Man. He became a nice little reserve for them. More recently, I think they did a nice job with Derrick Jones Jr. So I'm just curious. R.J. Hampton has no position, but can the Heat tame the wild stallion? So I have that story at sunsentinel.com, and I wrote my Ask Ira on, can Tyler Hero at least play passable defense? because this team with Jimmy Butler and Josh Richardson and Caleb Martin, they are loaded with defensive-minded wings they could play at the end instead. So I think Tyler, as much as he's a bucket, has to show some defense as well. Both are on sunsentinel.com right now. The RJ Hampton story will be in Wednesday's print newspaper.
By the way, I'm expecting Highsmith to take a next step forward and become a bigger part of this offense, obviously defense.
Yeah, and that could come at the expense of Nikola Jovic getting time, because I think Haywood Highsmith gets cast at power forward. So, you know what? These 5 preseason games will be interesting to see the development and the way guys have improved or the regression. So I think there will be exhibition with meaning. Just don't expect everyone to play and don't expect to see Jimmy Butler on the road.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah, that I would imagine that the Jimmy Butler stuff, there's going to be plenty of rest for Jimmy Butler. Well-deserved rest, because you got to keep him fresh for the end of the season. Ira, as always, thank you, my brother. We will catch up next week, and hopefully the boys will be ready to go for the regular season.
Yeah, I think it'll be a meeting preseason. We'll have some reviews of those games. Catch you next time in our Acura Pembroke Pines report. Thanks, Big O.
You got it.
You've been listening to the Acura of Pembroke Pines Miami Heat and NBA report with Ira Winderman. When you're looking for award-winning service and great deals from the #1 volume Acura sales dealership in the Southeast United States, you go to Craig's in Acura of Pembroke Pines at 15601 Pines Boulevard in Pembroke Pines.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.